Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
I excitedly planned my 20th birthday celebration, hoping this would finally be the year my parents acknowledged my achievements rather than constantly praising my older brother Travis. When I overheard them discussing party plans, I believed they were finally giving me the recognition I deserved. But upon arriving home from college for the weekend, I discovered the elaborate party being set up wasn't for me at all. It was for Travis, who decided he wanted to celebrate turning 20 again, despite being 24. And my parents eagerly agreed without a second thought about my actual birthday. Growing up in the shadow of Travis was something I learned to accept from an early age. Our home in suburban Cleveland, Ohio, was practically a shrine to my brother's accomplishments. The living room walls showcased dozens of trophies and medals. Travis had won in various sports, baseball, football, track, while my academic certificates and art contest ribbons were tucked away in a drawer in my bedroom. My parents, Richard and Diane, never seemed to notice the imbalance. Dad was a former high school quarterback who never quite made it to college sports, and Mom was head cheerleader when they met. They were the classic all-American couple who expected to raise the all-American son. They got that in Travis, their firstborn, who inherited Dad's athletic build and Mom's outgoing personality. By comparison, I was a disappointment more interested in sketching landscapes than tackling opponents on a field. Travis scored the winning touchdown again. Dad would announce at dinner, beaming with pride. The coach says he might get scouted by state next season. That's wonderful, Mom would gush, serving Travis an extra helping of mashed potatoes. Our boy is going places. Meanwhile, I'd sit quietly, waiting for someone to ask about the art competition I'd won that same day. The question never came. The only person who ever truly saw me was my grandmother Martha, Mom's mother. Grandma Martha had been an art teacher before retiring, and she recognized something in me that my parents couldn't or wouldn't see. "You have a gift, Arnold," she told me one afternoon while we sat on her porch. I was 10 years old, sketching the oak tree in her front yard. Don't let anyone convince you that your talents aren't valuable just because they can't be measured on a scoreboard. Throughout my childhood and teens, Grandma Martha was my rock. When my parents forgot to attend my art showcase because it conflicted with one of Travis's games, she was there in the front row. When I won a scholarship to a prestigious summer art program and my parents complained about the inconvenience of driving me there, Grandma Martha rearranged her schedule to take me every day. As my 20th birthday approached during my sophomore year of college, I allowed myself to hope things would be different. 20 seemed significant, no longer a teenager, officially an adult. I'd been dropping hints to my parents for weeks during our Sunday phone calls. "I have that weekend off from my campus job," I mentioned casually to Mom. "I was thinking of coming home to celebrate." "That sounds nice, honey," she replied, but I could hear her attention was divided, probably scrolling through social media while we talked. A week later, I tried again with Dad. For my birthday, I thought maybe we could go to that new steakhouse downtown. I hear they have great food. "Sure, we could do that," he said vaguely. "We'll figure something out when the time comes." Then, 3 weeks before my birthday, I called home and overheard something that sparked hope. Mom didn't realize I was on the line yet, and I could hear her talking to Dad in the background. "We need to order that custom banner today if we want it in time," she was saying excitedly, "and I've already called about reserving tables." My heart leapt. They were planning something big. Maybe they were finally going to celebrate me the way they'd always celebrated Travis. I felt a rush of emotion, validation, excitement, gratitude. "Sorry about that, Arnold," Mom said as she picked up the phone. "Just dealing with some planning." I wanted to ask about what I'd overheard, but something held me back. Maybe I wanted to be surprised. Maybe I was afraid she'd deny it was for me. The following week, Grandma Martha called. "Happy early birthday, sweetheart," she said warmly. "I've sent you a little something in the mail. It should arrive before your birthday." "Thanks, Grandma," I replied. "I think Mom and Dad might be planning something too." I overheard them talking about decorations and reservations. There was a pause on the line. "Is that so?" Her voice had a strange quality to it. "Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited. Maybe they finally see me." Another pause. "Just remember that your worth isn't determined by their recognition, Arnold. You're an extraordinary young man regardless." 2 days later, An envelope arrived from Grandma Martha, containing a birthday card with $500 and a note. "For art supplies or whatever brings you joy, I love you exactly as you are." It seemed generous, even for Grandma Martha, who was always thoughtful. Looking back, I think she suspected what was coming. The real blow came the day before I was set to drive home from college. I called to confirm my arrival time and heard Mom on the phone in the middle of a conversation. "Travis deserves this party more," she was saying to someone. "Arnold wouldn't appreciate it anyway. He's always so quiet and serious about everything. Travis knows how to have fun and make the most of a celebration." I stood in my dorm room, phone pressed to my ear, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. The excitement I'd been nurturing for weeks shattered into 1,000 pieces. The party wasn't for me at all. It never had been. The 2-hour drive from my college to my parents' house gave me plenty of time to process what I'd overheard. Part of me wanted to turn around, head back to my dorm, and pretend I had too much homework to come home. But another part still clung to hope maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe they were planning something for both of us. I pulled into our driveway around 4 in the afternoon on Friday. Mom's car was there, along with an unfamiliar van with party-perfect catering painted on the side. The front door was propped open with a box, and I could hear voices and movement inside. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed my overnight bag and portfolio case containing my latest artwork that I'd brought to show Grandma Martha. As I approached the house, a man in a catering uniform walked out carrying an empty box. "You must be the birthday boy," he said with a smile. "Your mom has gone all out for this one." I felt a flicker of hope. "Thanks," I managed to reply. Inside, the house was transformed. Blue and silver decorations covered every surface Travis's favorite colors, not mine. A banner hung across the living room reading 20 and terrific. Balloons floated in clusters throughout the space, and in the dining room, caterers were setting up chafing dishes on long tables. Mom emerged from the kitchen, clipboard in hand. "Arnold, you're early. We weren't expecting you until 5. "I said 4, I reminded her. "What's all this?" Before she could answer, Dad came downstairs carrying a stack of photo frames. As he set them on the coffee table, I could see they were all pictures of Travis throughout his life. Travis as a toddler, Travis in his football uniform, Travis at his high school graduation. "Your mother's outdone herself this time," Dad said proudly. "Wait till you see the cake." "Is this for my birthday?" I asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it. Mom and Dad exchanged a look. "Well, not exactly," Mom said, adjusting a balloon. "Travis decided he wanted to celebrate his 20th birthday again. You know how the pandemic ruined his actual 20th, and he thought it would be fun to redo it properly now that restrictions are lifted. But I'm turning 20. Tomorrow is my birthday," I said, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. Dad clapped me on the shoulder. "And we'll do something for that too, sport. But Travis already had this planned with his friends, and you know how important social connections are for his career networking." The doorbell rang, and Mom hurried to answer it. It was another delivery, a massive ice sculpture shaped like the number 20. "Where do you want this, ma'am?" asked the delivery man. "In the backyard under the tent," Mom directed. "Be careful not to bump the chocolate fountain on your way through." I stood in the middle of the living room, invisible among the party preparations for my brother's fake birthday. Travis wasn't even here yet, and already the house was being transformed in his honor while my actual milestone wasn't worth mentioning. "When is Travis getting here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Any minute," Dad replied, arranging the photos. "He's bringing some of his college buddies and Madison, of course." Madison was Travis's girlfriend of 2 years. She was nice enough, but like everyone else, she orbited around Travis like he was the sundae. I carried my bags upstairs to my old bedroom, which had been partially converted into a storage space since I left for college. Sitting on the edge of the twin bed, I called Grandma Martha. "They're throwing him a party," I said when she answered, not bothering with hello. "A huge party with catering and decorations and an ice sculpture. It's not even his birthday." "Oh, Arnold," Grandma Martha sighed. "I was afraid of something like this. Your mother mentioned plans for Travis when we spoke last week, but I didn't realize it coincided with your birthday." "She knew," I said, anger finally breaking through the shock. "They both knew. They just don't care." "Come stay with me tomorrow," she offered. "We'll have our own celebration." "I can't just leave," I said, though part of me wanted to. It would cause a scene, and they'd find a way to make me the villain. "Then stand your ground," Grandma Martha said firmly. "Don't let them diminish your birthday or your worth." After we hung up, I heard the unmistakable sound of Travis's voice downstairs, followed by laughter and excited greetings. I took a moment to compose myself before heading down to face my brother and the party that should have been mine. Travis stood in the center of the living room like a returning hero, his arm around Madison, surrounded by our parents and 3 of his friends from college. At 24, he still had the golden boy good looks that had made him popular in high school, though his former athletic build had softened slightly around the middle. "There he is," Travis boomed when he saw me. "The college boy. How's the art stuff going, bro?" Before I could answer, he turned to his friends. "My little brother thinks he's going to be the next Picasso or something." His friends chuckled obligingly while I forced a smile. "It's going well. I brought some new work to show Grandma Martha." "Martha's coming?" Travis asked Mom, who nodded. "Cool, cool. She always brings the best gifts." As if on cue, Dad emerged from the den carrying a small wrapped box. "We couldn't wait to give this to you, son," he said, handing the package to Travis. "Happy re-birthday." Travis tore into the wrapping paper with the enthusiasm of a child, revealing a sleek watch box. Inside was an expensive-looking timepiece with multiple dials and a leather band. "No way!" Travis exclaimed. "Is this the Hamilton I was looking at online?" "The very one," Mom said proudly. "We know how much you wanted it." "You guys are the best," Travis said, immediately removing his old watch and putting on the new one. "This must have cost a fortune." I watched the scene unfold, with a growing sense of unreality. Not only were they throwing Travis a fake birthday party on my actual birthday weekend, but they'd also bought him an expensive gift, something they'd clearly put thought into. "Did you get anything for Arnold's birthday?" Madison asked suddenly, looking between my parents. "Since it's tomorrow, right?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. "We were going to take him to dinner on Sunday," Mom said finally. "Actually, I have to head back to campus Sunday morning," I reminded her. "I told you that weeks ago." "Well, we'll figure something out," Dad said dismissively. "Maybe we can do lunch before you go." "We didn't forget," Mom added defensively. "We've just been busy with all this planning." Travis, sensing the tension, slapped me on the back. "Hey, you can share my party, little bro. Consider it a joint celebration." I looked around at the decorations all in Travis's colors, all celebrating Travis's life, all for Travis's fake milestone, and felt something inside me harden. "I need some air," I muttered, heading for the back door. As I passed through the kitchen, I heard Madison speaking in a low voice. "That's really messed up," she was saying to someone. "You can't just ignore his actual birthday while throwing a fake one for Travis." I didn't wait to hear the response. By 7 o'clock that evening, the house and backyard were transformed into what looked like a high-end event venue. String lights illuminated the yard, music pumped through rented speakers, and the garage had been converted into a makeshift bar serving cocktails and craft beers. The caterers had set up a gourmet spread that included Travis's favorite foods, sliders, gourmet mac and cheese, and a build-your-own taco station. I stood at the edge of the gathering, nursing a beer and watching as friends and relatives arrived. Many were confused when they saw me. "Happy birthday, Arnold," my cousin Sam said, handing me a gift bag. "The big 2-0. "Thanks," I replied. "But actually, the party's for Travis. He's celebrating turning 20 again." Sam looked puzzled. "But isn't he like 24? And isn't your birthday tomorrow?" I just shrugged, and Sam gave me a sympathetic look before moving on to greet others. This scene repeated itself several times as more guests arrived. Some had brought cards or gifts for me, having remembered my actual birthday, which only seemed to irritate my parents more. "Just put those inside on the hall table," Mom instructed one well-meaning aunt who'd brought presents for both Travis and me. "We're focusing on Travis's celebration tonight." My childhood friend Jake arrived around 8. We'd been neighbors growing up and had stayed close even after he went to state while I attended art school. Jake took one look at the situation and pulled me aside. "What the hell is this?" he asked quietly. "Welcome to the Travis Show," I replied, featuring a cameo by the actual birthday boy. Jake shook his head. "This is seriously messed up, Arn. Does he really need to hijack your birthday?" "Apparently so, and my parents are all too happy to let him." "Well, I'm here for you, not him," Jake said firmly. "And I brought bourbon, the good kind. Want to sneak some?" For the first time that day, I smiled genuinely. lead the way." We escaped to the side of the house, passing the flask back and forth, while Jake caught me up on his life. It was a brief respite from the bizarre reality of the party. When we returned, Travis was holding court near the ice sculpture, regaling his audience with stories of his sales job successes. He'd been working at a tech company since graduation, in a position his father's golf buddy had secured for him. "So," I tell the client, "you're not just buying software, you're buying peace of mind." And boom, signed a 3-year contract on the spot. Travis was saying as everyone laughed appreciatively. Mom stood nearby, beaming with pride, while Dad kept glancing at his watch. I soon discovered why. "Everyone gather around," Dad called out around 9:30. "It's time for the big surprise." The crowd moved toward the patio, where a massive cake was wheeled out by the caterers. It was elaborately decorated with blue fondant and silver details, topped with sparkler candles and a custom cake topper that read "Travis 2. Speech, speech." People chanted as Travis stepped up next to the cake. Dad handed Travis a microphone. They'd rented a sound system for this, and cleared his throat dramatically. "First, I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate me," Travis began. "Especially my amazing parents who put this whole thing together. As you know, when I turned 20, we were all stuck at home due to the pandemic. I missed out on the celebration I deserved." I flinched at the word deserved, but Travis continued. "So, I decided, why not do it over? Why not celebrate turning 20 again, but do it right this time? Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you should never settle for less than you deserve." The crowd applauded as Travis raised his glass in a toast. "To my parents, Richard and Diane, who always make sure I'm celebrated properly. I couldn't ask for more supportive parents." More applause, with Mom visibly tearing up. "And I suppose I should mention my little brother Arnold," Travis added, gesturing toward me with his drink. "Since it's actually his birthday tomorrow, he's turning 20 for real. Happy birthday, bro. I'm generously allowing you to share my spotlight tonight." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. Jake muttered something unflattering under his breath beside me. "Now let's eat some cake," Travis concluded, and the sparklers were lit to enthusiastic cheers. As the cake was being cut and distributed, I retreated to the relative quiet of the living room. I sat on the couch, surrounded by photos of Travis, feeling increasingly like a stranger in my own family. Several guests stopped by to wish me happy birthday privately, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. One of my aunts pressed a card into my hand. "Your Grandma Martha told me what's going on," she whispered. "This isn't right, Arnold." I nodded, unable to find words that wouldn't come out bitter. A little later, I decided to retrieve my portfolio to show Jake my latest work. I'd left it upstairs in my room, safely tucked against the wall. But when I went to get it, it wasn't where I'd left it. After searching my room, I headed back downstairs and spotted the familiar case leaning against the wall near the kitchen, right next to where people were placing their empty plates and cups. I hurried over, already seeing that the case was unzipped. As I reached for it, Travis stumbled backward, his drink sloshing over the rim of his cup. "Whoa, sorry about that," he said, not sounding sorry at all. Then he noticed what I was reaching for. "Oh hey, is this your art stuff? Let's see what baby brother's been drawing." Before I could stop him, Travis grabbed the portfolio and began pulling out my work-detailed charcoal sketches and watercolor landscapes I'd been perfecting for weeks, pieces I was planning to submit for a prestigious fellowship application. "Travis, please don't," I said firmly. "Those are important." "Just showing off your talent, bro," Travis replied, holding up one of my pieces for his friends to see. As he did, he tipped his cup, spilling beer across the paper. "Oops," he said with a laugh. "Happy little accident, right? Isn't that what that TV painter guy used to say?" He tried to wipe the beer off with his sleeve, smearing the charcoal and watercolors together into a muddy mess. "Stop it," I shouted, grabbing for the ruined artwork. "You're making it worse." The commotion drew attention, including my parents. Mom rushed over, concern on her face for Travis. "What's going on? Travis, are you okay?" "Arnold's freaking out over some drawings." Travis slurred slightly. "It was an accident, dude. Chill." I held the ruined artwork in my hands, weeks of work destroyed, pieces I'd planned to include in my fellowship application. "These weren't just some drawings," I said, my voice shaking. "This was my work, my future." "Don't be so dramatic," Dad said, appearing beside Mom. "It's just paper. You can make more drawings. Yeah, it's not like they were worth anything anyway, Travis added. Not like they'd sell or whatever. Something in me snapped. All the years of being overlooked, all the times my achievements were dismissed, all the birthdays where Travis got the spotlight even when it wasn't his turn, it all came rushing to the surface. This is my birthday weekend, I said, my voice louder than I intended. My 20th birthday. Not Travis's fake do-over. Mine. And not only did you plan this entire elaborate party for him on my birthday, but you didn't even get me a gift. You didn't even get me a card. The nearby conversation stopped as people turned to watch. And now, the work I've been perfecting for my fellowship application is ruined because Travis can't hold his alcohol, and you're defending him? Again? Arnold, you're making a scene, Mom hissed. This isn't the time or place. When is the time or place? I demanded. When has there ever been time or space for me in this family? When has anything I've done ever mattered compared to Travis? Travis stepped forward, putting his hand on my shoulder in what he probably thought was a conciliatory gesture. Bro, you're being too sensitive. It's just a party. I shrugged his hand off. It's never just a party with you, Travis. It's another example of how you get everything handed to you while I get nothing. How you can do no wrong while I can never do enough right. That's not fair, Arnold, Dad started, but I cut him off. Fair? You want to talk about fair? When was the last time you came to one of my art shows? When was the last time you bragged about my scholarships the way you brag about Travis's sales numbers? When was the last time you put even a fraction of this effort into celebrating anything about me? The silence that followed was deafening. Mom looked embarrassed. Dad looked angry. And Travis just looked confused, as if he genuinely couldn't understand why I was upset. I looked around at the elaborate decorations, the expensive catering, the custom cake, all for a milestone my brother had already celebrated 4 years ago, while my actual milestone wasn't even worth a card. I'm done, I said quietly, gathering the remains of my portfolio. I'm not doing this anymore. What do you mean you're done? Mom asked, her voice tinged with annoyance rather than concern. Don't be ridiculous, Arnold. I'm not being ridiculous, I replied, surprisingly calm now that I'd made my decision. I'm being realistic. This isn't a healthy environment for me, and I won't pretend it is anymore. I turned to Travis, who was watching with an expression between amusement and irritation. Enjoy your fake birthday party. I hope it fills whatever void you're trying to fill by stealing my milestone. I didn't steal anything, Travis protested. It's not my fault if people care more about my celebrations than yours. Those words confirmed everything I'd felt for years. In Travis's mind and in my parents', he deserved the attention. He deserved the celebrations. I was simply less worthy. I looked around at the gathered guests, many of whom were watching uncomfortably. My eyes landed on Jake, who gave me a slight nod of understanding. I'm leaving, I announced. I'm going to pack some things and go. Don't worry about dinner on Sunday, Mom. I won't be back. Don't be dramatic, Dad said dismissively. Where would you even go? He can crash at my place, Jake spoke up, stepping forward. For as long as he needs. This is absurd, Mom said, looking around as if seeking support from the other guests. You can't just leave in the middle of a family gathering because of a little spilled beer. This isn't about spilled beer, I said firmly. This is about 20 years of being treated like I don't matter, and I'm done accepting it. With that, I headed upstairs. I could hear the murmurs of conversation resuming below, my parents likely doing damage control, explaining away my overreaction to preserve the party atmosphere. In my room, I grabbed my duffel bag and began filling it with essentials, clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and a few books. I took the framed photo of Grandma Martha and me from my graduation day and carefully wrapped it in a t-shirt. Then I collected the remains of my portfolio, hoping I could salvage at least parts of some pieces. There was a knock at my door, and Madison stepped in without waiting for an answer. Hey, she said awkwardly. I just wanted to say I think you're right to leave. What they did is messed up. I looked at her in surprise. Madison had always been firmly in Travis's corner. Thanks for saying that, I replied. But won't Travis be upset with you for taking my side? She shrugged. Probably. But I'm getting tired of the Travis show too, to be honest. Everything always has to be about him. It's exhausting. Try living with it for 20 years, I said, zipping up my bag. Do you need help carrying anything down? I handed her my laptop bag. Thanks. And maybe create a distraction so I don't have to do another round of confrontation? She nodded. I can do that. We headed downstairs together. True to her word, Madison loudly announced she wasn't feeling well in the kitchen, drawing my parents' and Travis's attention while I slipped out the front door to Jake's waiting car. You okay? Jake asked as I threw my bags in his back seat. Not really, I admitted. But I will be. As we drove away, I texted Grandma Martha. Left the party, staying at Jake's. We'll call you tomorrow. Her reply came quickly. Proud of you for standing up for yourself. Call any time. Love you. Those words, proud of you, meant more than any party could have. Jake's apartment was small but comfortable, with a pull-out couch that would serve as my bed for the next few weeks. That night, lying in the unfamiliar space, I felt a strange mixture of grief and relief. I'd lost something, the illusion that my family would ever truly see me, but I'd gained something too, the freedom to stop trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. The next day, my actual 20th birthday, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from my parents, alternating between guilt trips and demands that I return home immediately. I silenced notifications from them and focused instead on the genuine birthday wishes from friends and the long call with Grandma Martha. What's your plan now, sweetheart? She asked after wishing me happy birthday. I'm not sure, I admitted. I can't stay on Jake's couch forever. You could come live with me, she offered. I have the spare room. I considered it. Grandma Martha lived about 30 minutes from my college, in a small house that had always been a refuge. That's really generous, but I think I need to stand on my own feet, I said finally. But maybe you could help me figure out how to do that. Of course, she replied warmly, and I may have some ideas already. True to her word, Grandma Martha helped me navigate the process of finding an affordable apartment near campus. She insisted on covering the security deposit and first month's rent, ignoring my protests. Consider it an investment in your independence, she said firmly. You can pay me back by succeeding on your terms. With her help, I found a small studio within walking distance of campus. It wasn't much, but it was mine, the first space I'd ever had that wasn't overshadowed by Travis's presence. I also needed a job. My campus work-study position didn't pay enough for rent and bills. By a stroke of luck, the local art gallery near campus was hiring a part-time assistant. The owner, Elaine, was impressed by the portfolio pieces I'd managed to salvage, and even more impressed by my knowledge of art history. You start next week, she said after our interview. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. We'll work around your class schedule. As I settled into my new life, I made the difficult decision to skip Thanksgiving with my family. The thought of sitting across the table from Travis and my parents, pretending everything was fine, was more than I could bear. Instead, I spent the holiday with Grandma Martha, helping her cook a small turkey and listening to her stories of her own youthful rebellions. Your mother doesn't remember, she told me over pumpkin pie, but I once walked out of my own parents' house because they disapproved of my art studies, said it wasn't a proper career for a young lady. What happened? I asked. I stayed away for 3 months. When I finally went back, they'd realized I wasn't going to change my mind. We reached an understanding. She patted my hand. Sometimes, distance is the only way people recognize what they've lost. Christmas brought renewed pressure from my parents to come home, this time with grudging apologies that never quite acknowledged the real issues. I remained firm in my boundaries, agreeing only to a brief lunch with them at a neutral restaurant the week before Christmas. Travis wasn't present, which made the conversation slightly easier but no less strained. We miss you, Mom said, though her tone suggested she was more annoyed than heartbroken. You could always visit me, I pointed out. You've never seen my apartment or the gallery where I work. We've been busy, Dad replied automatically. Travis has been having some issues at work that we've been helping him navigate. Of course they had. Travis remained the priority, even in his absence. After that lunch, I focused my energy on my fellowship application. The prestigious Hartman Fellowship offered emerging artists funding, mentorship, and exhibition opportunities. It was highly competitive, with thousands of applicants nationwide and only 20 selected each year. I worked tirelessly recreating the pieces Travis had destroyed and developing new work specifically for the application. Elaine at the gallery offered valuable feedback, pushing me to refine my techniques and develop a more cohesive portfolio. You have something special, Arnold, she told me one evening as we were closing the gallery. A perspective that's both vulnerable and resilient. Your work speaks to anyone who's ever felt overlooked. In January, I submitted my application with cautious hope. Then I threw myself into my classes and my job, trying not to think about the odds against me. Life settled into a new rhythm. I had dinner with Grandma Martha every Sunday. I made new friends through the gallery, fellow artists who valued creativity and self-expression. I even went on a few dates, though nothing serious developed. The distance from my family gave me space to understand that what I'd experienced wasn't normal or healthy. In their orbit, I'd always believed I was somehow less deserving of celebration and recognition. Outside it, I began to see my worth more clearly. In March, an email arrived from the Hartman Fellowship Committee. I stared at it for 10 minutes before finding the courage to open it. "Dear Mr. Arnold Patterson," it began, "we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as a recipient of the Hartman Fellowship for Emerging Artists." I read the email 5 times, hardly believing it was real. Then I called Grandma Martha, who cried happy tears with me over the phone. "I knew you could do it," she said. "I've always known." The fellowship came with a grant of $15,000, mentorship from established artists, and a guaranteed spot in a prestigious group exhibition in the fall. It was more than recognition, it was validation of everything I'd been working toward. News of my achievement spread quickly. Elaine posted about it on the gallery's social media, and the local arts newspaper ran a small feature about me as a hometown talent on the rise. That's how my parents found out, not from me, but from friends who saw the article and congratulated them. Their messages and calls suddenly took on a different tone, full of pride they hadn't earned the right to express. "We always knew you had talent," Mom texted, as if she hadn't spent years dismissing my art as a hobby. "This calls for a celebration," Dad wrote, apparently forgetting he hadn't thought my actual birthday worthy of one. I responded politely but maintained my boundaries. Their sudden interest felt less like genuine support and more like wanting to claim credit for a success they'd played no part in fostering. Travis remained conspicuously silent. The months following my fellowship award brought changes I could never have imagined when I walked out of that birthday party. The financial support allowed me to reduce my hours at the gallery and focus more intensely on creating work for the upcoming exhibition. My mentorship with renowned landscape artist Daniel Westwood pushed me to experiment with new techniques and perspectives. "Your work has a unique emotional honesty," Daniel told me during one of our monthly sessions. "You're not just painting scenes, you're capturing feelings of isolation and emergence. That's powerful." My tiny apartment gradually transformed into a working studio. Canvases leaned against every wall, sketches covered the kitchen table, and the scent of oil paints permeated everything. It wasn't luxurious, but it was a space where I could create freely, without judgment or comparison. Grandma Martha visited often, bringing homemade meals and unwavering encouragement. Sometimes she'd sit quietly in my armchair, knitting while I painted, creating a companionable silence that felt more like home than my parents' house ever had. "You seem different," she observed one evening in late spring. "More centered." "I feel different," I admitted. "For the first time, I'm not trying to earn anyone's approval. I'm just doing the work I believe in." My relationship with my parents remained distant but cordial. We spoke occasionally by phone, exchanged obligatory holiday cards, and maintained the surface-level connection of people who share DNA but little else. They made occasional overtures about visiting, but something always came up to prevent it, usually something related to Travis. From snippets of conversation and Grandma Martha's careful updates, I gathered that Travis's life wasn't going as smoothly as before. The tech company where he worked had undergone restructuring, and without his father's golf buddy in management anymore, Travis's mediocre performance was finally being noticed. He'd been passed over for promotion twice and was increasingly bitter about it. "He expects everything to be handed to him," Grandma Martha confided during one of our Sunday dinners. "He's never had to work for recognition, so he doesn't know how." I felt a complex mix of emotions hearing this, a flash of vindication quickly replaced by pity. Travis was as much a product of our parents' dysfunctional favoritism as I was, just on the opposite end of the spectrum. He'd been taught that he deserved adoration simply for existing, while I'd been taught I had to earn every scrap of attention. Neither lesson had prepared us well for the real world. My social circle expanded as I connected with other fellowship recipients and local artists. Among them was Stephanie, a sculptor whose work with reclaimed materials had earned critical acclaim. We met at a gallery opening in June and fell into easy conversation about artistic influences and creative processes. "Your landscapes have this fascinating undercurrent of tension," she observed, studying one of my pieces on display. "Like the tranquility could be disrupted at any moment." "Probably says something about my psyche," I joked. "All good art does," she replied with a smile. We began meeting for coffee after that, then dinners, then studio visits to see each other's works in progress. Stephanie was direct and perceptive, qualities I found increasingly attractive. Unlike my family, she saw me clearly and valued what she saw. Summer brought preparations for the fellowship exhibition in September. I worked feverishly, creating a series of landscapes that charted an emotional journey from isolation to self-discovery. The centerpiece was a large canvas depicting a solitary figure at a crossroads, with stormy skies behind and clear light ahead. In July, I received an unexpected email from Marcus Bennett, the director of Northlight Gallery in New York. He'd seen images of my work on the fellowship program's website and expressed interest in including me in an upcoming showcase of emerging American landscape artists. "Your work demonstrates a maturity and emotional depth that resonates with our gallery's aesthetic," he wrote. "We would be interested in discussing representation if the fellowship exhibition confirms our impressions." I stared at the email in disbelief. Northlight was a prestigious gallery that had launched numerous successful careers. Even being considered for a showcase there was beyond anything I'd imagined for myself at this stage. When I shared the news with Stephanie over dinner that evening, she raised her glass in toast. "To being seen," she said. "To being seen," I echoed, the simple phrase carrying profound meaning for me. August arrived, bringing my 21st birthday. Unlike the previous year's disaster, this birthday was entirely on my terms. Stephanie organized a small gathering at a local bistro with friends from the art community and Grandma Martha as the guest of honor. There were thoughtful gifts, genuine conversations, and no competing siblings to overshadow the celebration. As we shared dessert, Grandma Martha took my hand across the table. "I'm so proud of the man you're becoming, Arnold. You've faced difficulty with grace and emerged stronger." "I had a good example," I replied, squeezing her hand. My parents called that morning with birthday wishes that felt more genuine than in previous years, though still tinged with awkwardness. They mentioned Travis only briefly, noting that he was going through some things but offered no details. I didn't press for information. Travis's life was increasingly separate from mine, a parallel story I was no longer obligated to center in my narrative. September brought the fellowship exhibition, displayed in a converted warehouse space in downtown Cleveland. Seeing my work professionally mounted alongside other talented artists filled me with a pride I'd never experienced before. This wasn't achievement in spite of my family's lack of support. It was achievement because I'd finally broken free of their limiting perceptions. The opening night drew a substantial crowd, including critics from several regional arts publications. I navigated the evening in a state of nervous excitement, discussing my work with attendees and trying to absorb the surreal experience of being treated as a serious artist. About an hour into the event, I spotted a familiar figure standing before my centerpiece painting. Grandma Martha had arrived, elegant in a deep blue dress, beaming with pride. "It's even more powerful in person," she said as I approached. "You've captured something universal here. I couldn't have done any of this without you," I told her. "That's not true," she replied firmly. "You had this in you all along. I just reminded you to believe in it when others didn't." Later that evening, Marcus Bennett from Northlight Gallery introduced himself. He studied my displayed works with careful attention, asking thoughtful questions about my process and influences. "Your instincts were right," he said to his assistant. "There's something compelling here, raw but refined." He handed me his card. "We should talk more formally. I'd like to include 3 pieces in our January showcase, with an eye toward possible representation." After he moved on, I stood frozen, card in hand, trying to process what had just happened. Stephanie found me in this state and laughed at my stunned expression. "Did you just have an art world celebrity encounter?" she teased. "I think I just got offered a shot at my dream," I replied. The exhibition garnered positive reviews, with one critic describing my work as emotionally resonant landscapes that explore themes of isolation and self-discovery with uncommon maturity. Local press picked up the story, especially after the Northlight interest became public. It was a small arts column in the Cleveland Observer that finally caught my parents' full attention. The headline, "Local Artist Arnold Patterson's Rise Catches New York Gallery's Eye," was accompanied by a photo of me standing beside my centerpiece at the exhibition. Their calls came within hours of each other, suddenly full of enthusiasm about my big break and questions about when they could see the exhibition. The fact that it had been open for 2 weeks already, without their interest until the media recognition, spoke volumes. "We're so proud of you, honey," Mom gushed over the phone. "We always knew you had special talent." The revision of history was breathtaking in its audacity. In their minds, perhaps they had always been supportive. Perhaps they remembered attending art shows they'd actually skipped and offering encouragement they'd never given. "Thanks," I replied simply, neither confirming nor challenging their reconstructed narrative. "We should have a family dinner to celebrate," Dad suggested. "Maybe this weekend? We could come to you, see your exhibition." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect the hard-won peace and self-worth I'd cultivated over the past year. But another part recognized this as possibly the first time they'd ever offered to enter my world rather than expecting me to orbit theirs. "Sunday would work," I said finally. "The exhibition's open until 5. We could see it, then have dinner afterward." "Perfect," Dad replied enthusiastically. "Should we bring Travis? He's been asking about you." The mention of my brother sent a jolt of tension through me. "If he wants to come, that's fine," I said carefully. "But this is about my work, not a family reunion." Of course," Dad assured me. "We understand." After hanging up, I sat in my studio, surrounded by the work that had changed my life's trajectory, and wondered if my family was capable of changing too, of seeing me as I actually was, rather than as the second-best son they'd always cast me as. Only time would tell. But regardless of their reaction, I knew now that my worth wasn't dependent on their recognition. I had built something valuable without them, and that was a foundation no one could take away. Sunday arrived with clear skies and a crisp autumn breeze. I'd spent the morning at the exhibition, speaking with visitors, and feeling a now familiar pride as they engaged with my work. Around 2 o'clock, Grandma Martha arrived, earlier than my parents' planned visit at 3. "I wanted to be here when they come," she explained, linking her arm through mine, "for moral support." "You think I need it?" I asked, though I was grateful for her presence. "I think family dynamics don't change overnight," she replied wisely. "And I want today to be a good day for you." We walked through the exhibition together, pausing before each piece as Grandma Martha shared her observations. Though she'd seen the work before, she approached it with fresh eyes each time, finding new details to appreciate. At precisely 3 o'clock, my parents walked in, followed by Travis. They were dressed more formally than necessary, as if attending a gala rather than an art exhibition. Mom clutched her purse nervously, while Dad scanned the room with the uncomfortable air of someone in unfamiliar territory. Travis, to my surprise, looked different. The confident swagger I remembered was diminished, replaced by a tighter, more defensive posture. He'd lost weight, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. "There he is!" Mom exclaimed too loudly when she spotted me, drawing glances from nearby visitors. She rushed forward to embrace me, the scent of her perfume momentarily overwhelming. "My artist's son." "Hi, Mom," I replied, gently disengaging. "Dad, Travis, thanks for coming." Dad shook my hand formally, as if meeting a business associate rather than his son. "Quite a turnout," he observed, glancing around. "Very impressive." Travis hung back, hands in his pockets. "Hey," he said simply. "Let me show you around," I offered, guiding them toward the beginning of my displayed series. The next hour was surreal. My parents moved through the exhibition with expressions of bewildered pride, clearly impressed but not entirely understanding what they were seeing. They made appropriate comments about colors and techniques, but missed the emotional narrative connecting the pieces. "You did all these in 1 year?" Dad asked, seeming genuinely surprised by my productivity. "Most of them," I confirmed. "The fellowship gave me time and resources to focus." "It must be worth quite a bit," he mused, eyeing the small price list discreetly posted nearby. "That's not really the point," Grandma Martha interjected smoothly, "though Arnold's work is already attracting serious collectors." Travis trailed behind us, saying little. I caught him studying my centerpiece painting with an intensity that surprised me, not just looking, but seeing. His expression was complex, emotions flickering across his face too quickly to read. As we completed the circuit of my work, Marcus Bennett approached, impeccably dressed and carrying a portfolio case. "Arnold, good to see you again," he said warmly. shaking my hand. "I've brought the paperwork for the January showcase. 3 pieces, as discussed, with potential for more depending on collector response." My parents straightened with newfound interest at this clear indicator of professional validation. "Mom, Dad, this is Marcus Bennett from Northlight Gallery in New York," I introduced them. "Marcus, my parents, Richard and Diane, my grandmother Martha, and my brother Travis." "A pleasure," Marcus said, shaking hands all around. "You must be very proud. Arnold's work has that rare quality of emotional authenticity that can't be taught. We're quite excited to introduce him to our collectors." Mom beamed. "We always knew he was talented." "Indeed," Marcus replied diplomatically. "Nurturing artistic talent from an early age is so crucial." After a few more minutes of conversation, Marcus excused himself, arranging to meet with me later in the week to finalize details for the showcase. "New York," Dad said, appreciatively, once Marcus had gone. "That's the big leagues, son." "It's a start," I acknowledged, uncomfortable with their sudden enthusiasm. We left the exhibition shortly after, heading to a nearby restaurant where I'd reserved a table. Grandma Martha had insisted on joining us, a buffer I was increasingly grateful for as the afternoon progressed. Once seated and orders placed, an awkward silence fell over the table. A year of minimal contact had left us with few safe topics of conversation. "So," Mom began brightly, "tell us more about this New York gallery opportunity. Will you move there?" "Not immediately," I replied. "It's just 3 pieces in a group showcase for now. If it goes well, we'll discuss more extensive representation." "You should consider it," Dad advised. "New York is where the real art market is." "I'm focused on creating good work," I said. "The rest will follow." Another silence descended, broken by Travis unexpectedly. "The painting with the crossroads," he said. "That's about leaving, isn't it? About walking away from us." His directness startled me. "It's about making choices," I replied carefully. "About recognizing when a path no longer serves you." "Very deep," Travis said, a hint of the old sarcasm returning. But there was something else beneath it, a rawness that hadn't been there before. "How have you been, Travis?" I asked, genuinely curious about the changes I observed in him. He shrugged. "Oh, great, terrific. Everything handed to me on a silver platter, right? Isn't that what you think?" "Travis," Mom cautioned, "let's keep things pleasant." "Why?" he challenged. "So we can pretend we're a normal, happy family? So we can act like Arnold didn't walk out on us for a year?" "I didn't walk out on anyone," I corrected him. "I removed myself from a situation that was harmful to me." "Harmful?" Travis repeated with a harsh laugh. "Because I spilled beer on some drawings. You know it wasn't about that." Grandma Martha placed a calming hand on my arm. "Perhaps this isn't the best venue for this discussion." "No, let's have it out," Travis insisted, his voice rising slightly. "Let's talk about how Arnold has spent the year playing the victim and now he's some big success with galleries chasing him. While He cut himself off abruptly. "While you what?" I asked quietly. Travis's jaw tightened. "Nothing. Forget it." Dad cleared his throat. "Travis has had some professional setbacks," he explained. "The company restructured, and he's taking some time to reassess his options." "I got fired," Travis corrected bluntly, 6 months ago, because apparently I'm not a team player and rely too heavily on personal connections rather than results. The naked vulnerability in his admission stunned me. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "Are you?" Travis challenged. "Isn't this what you wanted? For me to fail while you succeeded?" "No," I replied firmly. "I never wanted you to fail. I just wanted to be valued for who I am, not measured against you." Travis laughed bitterly. "Well, congratulations. You're the golden child now. Articles in the paper, fancy galleries in New York. Mom and Dad talk about you constantly." "Travis, that's not fair," Mom protested. "Isn't it?" Travis countered. "Ever since that exhibition opened, it's been Arnold this and Arnold that. You've been planning this visit for weeks, talking about how proud you are of your artist son." "We're proud of both our sons," Dad insisted. "Bull," Travis spat. "You're proud of success. When I was the successful one, you couldn't stop bragging. Now that Arnold's getting recognition, suddenly he's the one you care about." The restaurant seemed to fade away as this raw, painful truth landed between us. My parents' affection had never been unconditional. It had always been performance-based. Travis had simply been better at performing the role they valued, until now. "That's not true," Mom said weakly, but her eyes told a different story. "I saw those articles about you," Travis continued, focusing on me now. "Local boy makes good, rising star." And I thought, that should have been me. I was supposed to be the successful one. "It's not a competition," I said quietly. "Isn't it?" Travis countered. "Hasn't it always been? One of us winning meant the other was losing. That's how they raised us." The "they" hung in the air, an accusation our parents couldn't deny. "We never meant to pit you against each other," Dad protested. "You didn't have to mean to," Grandma Martha said, speaking up for the first time since the argument began. "Your actions spoke clearly enough." A tense silence fell over the table, broken only when our food arrived. We ate mechanically, the celebration completely forgotten. As we neared the end of the meal, Travis abruptly stood. "I need some air," he muttered, heading for the door. After a moment's hesitation, I followed him outside. He was leaning against the building, staring up at the darkening sky. "Come to gloat?" he asked, without looking at me. "No," I replied. "I came to see if you're okay." Travis laughed humorlessly. "I'm unemployed, living in our parents' basement at 25, watching my little brother become everything I was supposed to be. I'm fantastic." "I never wanted your life, Travis," I said quietly. "I just wanted my own." "Yeah, well," he shrugged. "Turns out mine wasn't so great anyway." We stood in silence for a moment. "I don't hate you, you know," Travis said eventually. "I envied you sometimes. How you always knew what you wanted. How you had something you were passionate about. The admission surprised me. I always thought you had everything." "I had attention," he corrected. "Not the same thing." Our conversation was interrupted as our parents and Grandma Martha exited the restaurant. "Everything okay out here?" Dad asked cautiously. "Just getting some air," Travis replied, his defensive posture returning. Mom glanced between us nervously. We thought we might head back to the exhibition for one more look before it closes. As a family. The word family hung awkwardly in the air. What were we now? What could we be? "That sounds good," I said after a moment. We walked back to the exhibition in strained silence. As we entered, a few visitors were still studying the displayed works. We moved through the space more quietly this time, the earlier tension still simmering. Near my centerpiece painting, Travis stopped again. "You really are good," he said, surprising me with what sounded like genuine admiration. "I didn't want to see it before, but you are." Before I could respond, a woman approached us, Elaine, from the gallery where I worked. "Arnold, I was hoping to catch you," she said warmly. "The reporter from Art Quarterly is here and would love a few words about your process for the piece they're running." "Oh," I said, caught off guard. "Sure. Is this your family?" Elaine asked, smiling at the group. "Yes," I confirmed. "My parents, Richard and Diane, my grandmother Martha, and my brother Travis." "Wonderful," Elaine exclaimed. "You must be so proud of him. His work has received the most attention of any in the exhibition. We've already had multiple offers for his pieces, and Marcus Bennett from Northlight Gallery in New York is considering representation." The pride in her voice was unmistakable, and I felt a surge of gratitude for her genuine support over the past year. "We are very proud," Grandma Martha said firmly when my parents hesitated. "Of course we are," Mom added quickly. "Our artistic son." Something in Travis's expression changed, hardened at those words. The momentary vulnerability disappeared, replaced by a tightly controlled anger. "Artistic son," he repeated. "As opposed to the unemployed failure, right?" "Travis, that's not what I meant," Mom protested. "Isn't it?" Travis's voice rose. "Isn't that exactly what you meant? He's the successful one now, so he's the one you're proud of. Just like I was the one you were proud of before." Elaine looked uncomfortable. "I should give you some privacy." "No need," Travis said bitterly. "This is a public space. Let everyone see what a supportive, loving family we are." "Travis, please," Dad began, but Travis cut him off. "Please, what? Please keep pretending? Please don't make a scene? Please don't embarrass you in front of Arnold's fancy art friends?" "That's enough," Dad said sternly. "No, it's not enough," Travis countered, his voice getting louder. "For 20 years you treated Arnold like he didn't matter, because he wasn't me. And now that he's successful and I'm struggling, suddenly he matters and I don't. Neither of us ever mattered to you, only what we achieved." Other exhibition visitors were starting to stare. Elaine looked mortified. "Travis, this isn't the place," I said quietly. "Why not?" he demanded. "Isn't this your moment of triumph? Isn't this what you wanted to show everyone how far you've come without us?" "I never wanted any of this," I replied, keeping my voice level. "I just wanted to be valued for who I am, not compared to you." "Well, congratulations," Travis said bitterly. "They value you now, and they've forgotten all about me." With that, he knocked over a nearby display pedestal, sending a small sculpture crashing to the floor. The sound echoed through the gallery as everyone froze in shock. "Travis!" Mom gasped. "What is wrong with you?" Dad demanded. Travis looked at the toppled pedestal, then at me. A complex mix of emotions crossing his face: anger, shame, jealousy, regret. "I'm sorry," he muttered, then turned and stormed out of the gallery. In the stunned silence that followed, I knelt to check the sculpture. Thankfully, it wasn't one of mine and appeared undamaged. "I am so sorry," Mom said to Elaine, mortified. "He's been going through a difficult time." Dad was already heading for the door. "I'll go after him." Grandma Martha helped me right the pedestal. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "I think so," I replied, though the confrontation had left me shaken. Elaine approached cautiously. "Should we call security?" "No," I said quickly. "It was an accident. He's gone now." The remainder of the evening passed in a blur. My parents left to find Travis, apologizing profusely for the disruption. Grandma Martha stayed with me until closing, a steady presence amid the chaos. "Family healing doesn't happen in a day," she observed as we walked to her car afterward. "Some wounds take time to even acknowledge, let alone heal." I nodded, processing the raw truths Travis had exposed. For all his faults, he'd named the dysfunction that had shaped both our lives, the conditional love that had privileged his achievements while dismissing mine. Until the tables turned. "Do you think we'll ever be a real family?" I asked her. Grandma Martha considered this. "I think you've already found your real family," she said finally. "In friends who value you, mentors who nurture your gifts, people who see you clearly. But your parents and Travis? That depends on whether they can face the hard truths about themselves." As I drove home that evening, Travis's words echoed in my mind. Behind his anger was a pain. I recognized the pain of conditional love withdrawn. We were mirror images, experiencing the same dysfunctional dynamic from opposite sides. For the first time, I felt something unexpected toward my brother: empathy. And with it came the recognition that true healing would require not just my growth, but his as well. The days following Travis's meltdown were eerily quiet. My parents called to apologize profusely, more concerned about the embarrassment than the underlying issues his outburst had exposed. Elaine was understanding, assuring me that family drama wasn't uncommon at exhibition openings, though usually with less physical expression. "Art evokes emotion," she said philosophically. "Sometimes those emotions aren't pretty." I threw myself into preparations for the Northlight Showcase, finalizing which 3 pieces would travel to New York and creating accompanying artist statements. The work provided welcome distraction from family complications. A week passed before I heard from Travis directly. His text was brief. "Can we talk? In person. Alone." I suggested meeting at a coffee shop near my apartment-neutral territory. When I arrived, Travis was already there, hunched over a mug at a corner table. He looked tired but more composed than at the exhibition. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat across from him. "I wouldn't blame you if you'd refused." "We're still brothers," I replied, "despite everything." Travis nodded, staring into his coffee. "I owe you an apology. For the exhibition, for the party last year, for a lot of things." "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "I've been seeing a therapist," he continued, surprising me. "Started a couple months ago after I lost my job. She's helped me see some things more clearly." "That's good," I offered, unsure where this was heading. "Did you know I've been jealous of you?" Travis asked suddenly. "For years." I blinked in surprise. "Jealous? Of me?" "But you had everything." "I had attention," he corrected, echoing our conversation outside the restaurant. "But you had purpose, direction, passion. I never had that." He took a sip of coffee before continuing. "My therapist calls it empty success. I achieved what our parents valued: sports, popularity, a corporate job, but none of it was really mine. I was living their definition of success, not creating my own." The insight startled me. I'd never considered Travis's experiences from that angle. When you walked out last year, he continued, I was angry. But part of me envied your courage. You chose yourself over their approval. I never had the guts to do that. It wasn't about courage, I said. It was survival. I couldn't keep being the person they wanted me to be because it wasn't me. And look at you now, Travis said, with what seemed like genuine admiration, building a career doing what you love. It hasn't been easy, I admitted. But it's been worth it. Travis nodded thoughtfully. My therapist suggested I need to figure out what I actually want, separate from what Mom and Dad expect. I've never really done that before. Any ideas? I asked. A few, he replied. I've been volunteering at a youth center, coaching basketball. I enjoy working with kids more than I ever liked corporate sales. Might look into teaching or counseling. That suits you, I said, meaning it. Travis had always had charisma and leadership qualities they'd just been channeled into shallow pursuits. I also owe you an apology for the portfolio, he added. I was drunk, but that's no excuse. I knew it was important to you, and part of me wanted to hurt you because I was jealous. It was childish and cruel. The directness of his admission surprised me. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It means a lot. We talked for nearly 2 hours, more honestly than we ever had before. Travis described his struggles after losing his job, the shame, the identity crisis, the gradual recognition that he'd been living a life designed to please our parents rather than fulfill himself. They're not bad people, he said of our parents. They just never developed past their own limited understanding of success. To them, it's always been about status and recognition, which explains why they're suddenly interested in my art career now that it's getting attention, I observed. Travis nodded. Exactly. They can brag about their artist son because other people validate it now, just like they bragged about their sales executive son before. The insight felt both painful and liberating, a truth that explained so much of our family dynamic. Where do we go from here? I asked. Travis considered the question. I'm working on myself, setting boundaries with Mom and Dad, finding my own path. He looked at me directly, and I'd like to try being actual brothers, if you're open to that. Not competitors, not defined by them. Just .br, others. The offer touched something deep in me, a longing for family connection I hadn't fully acknowledged. I'd like that, I said sincerely. The following months brought gradual, sometimes awkward efforts at rebuilding. Travis moved out of our parents' house into his own apartment and began taking education courses at the community college. We met for coffee every few weeks, slowly discovering who we were as adults rather than as the roles we'd been assigned in childhood. My parents made efforts too, though their transformation was less dramatic. They attended my next small exhibition without Travis, actually looking at my work and asking questions that suggested growing understanding. They still occasionally slipped into old patterns, comparing, measuring, valuing achievement over authenticity, but they were trying. It's a journey, Grandma Martha reminded me. People don't change overnight, especially when the patterns are decades old. January brought the Northlight Showcase in New York. To my surprise, my entire family attended the opening parents, Travis and Grandma Martha. Seeing them there, making an effort to enter my world rather than pull me into theirs, meant more than any previous validation. After the successful showcase, Northlight offered me formal representation, a milestone that both thrilled and humbled me. My career was taking shape in ways I'd hardly dared imagine when I walked out of that birthday party a year earlier. More meaningful than professional success, however, was the personal growth the year had brought. I'd learned to value myself independently of others' recognition. I'd discovered that family could be both born and chosen. I'd found that setting boundaries wasn't selfish, but essential for authentic relationships. Perhaps most importantly, I'd learned that walking away wasn't always the end of a story. Sometimes it was the beginning of a better one. In March, as my 22nd birthday approached, I decided to host a small gathering at my apartment. I invited Stephanie, now officially my girlfriend, friends from the art community, Grandma Martha, my parents, and Travis. The evening wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, old patterns threatening to re-emerge. But there was also laughter, genuine conversation, and a sense of possibility that had been absent from family gatherings before. As we shared dessert, a cake Stephanie had baked, Travis raised his glass. "To Arnold," he said. Not just for your success, but for having the courage to demand better for yourself. You changed your life, and in doing so, you changed mine too. Happy birthday, brother. The simple toast captured how far we'd come, not to perfect resolution, but to a place of honest acknowledgement and new beginnings. Later that evening, as the party wound down, Grandma Martha pulled me aside. "I've been thinking about what you said last year," she told me, "about whether you'd ever be a real family with your parents and Travis." "And," I prompted, "I think you're building something better than what came before," she said. "Not perfect, not without effort, but real in a way the old dynamic never was. There's honesty now, and that's the foundation of any meaningful relationship." As my guests departed, I stood in the doorway of my apartment, a space filled with my art, my choices, my authentic self-expression. The journey from that painful birthday to this one had been challenging and sometimes lonely, but it had led me to a life that was genuinely mine. The greatest lesson I'd learned wasn't about art or success or even family dynamics. It was about the courage to define my own worth, to set boundaries that protected it, and to build connections based on truth rather than performance. Walking away from that party had been the first step on a path to discovering who I really was. Not the shadow of my brother, not the disappointment to my parents, but a person of value and vision in my own right. And that revelation was worth celebrating more than any birthday. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship or situation that wasn't serving you? How did you find the courage to make that difficult choice? And what did you learn from the experience? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose ourselves. Thank you for listening. And remember, your worth isn't determined by others' recognition. It's inherent in who you are.